My name is Alexandra Reeves, and I built a multi-million-dollar tech company using public library computers because my parents gave my entire college fund to my more promising sister. 10 years later, they showed up at my office begging for investment money to save their retirement. Life has a fascinating way of coming full circle. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I remember the exact moment when I realized my family saw me as their second best investment. It was during my senior year of high school, seated at our kitchen table with college acceptance letters spread before me. Stanford, MIT, and Columbia, my dream schools that had become tangible possibilities after years of perfect grades, science fair victories, and coding competitions. "We need to talk about finances," my father said, his voice carrying that distinctive tone that always preceded uncomfortable conversations. My mother sat beside him, her hands clasped tightly, eyes avoiding mine. I nodded confidently. This was just a formality. My college fund had been growing since before I could walk, a fact my parents had reminded me of throughout my childhood whenever they encouraged academic excellence. "Work hard, and your future is secured," they'd say. That fund represented more than money. It was the physical manifestation of their belief in me. "We've had to make some difficult decisions," my father continued, clearing his throat. "As you know, Sophia's medical program at Johns Hopkins is expensive, and with her, additional living expenses in Baltimore. My sister Sophia was 2 years older than me, studying to become a surgeon, a respectable, stable profession my parents had always admired. The unease in my stomach grew as my father spoke. "We've had to reallocate your college fund to cover Sophia's final 3 years," he finished. The words hung in the air between us. Reallocate. Such a clinical term for what they had done. "All of it?" My voice sounded distant, as though someone else were speaking. My mother finally looked at me. "Sophia's education is very expensive, and her grades weren't quite high enough for the scholarship she needed. Medical school is such a significant investment. You understand, don't you? You've always been the practical one." "Practical? I'd soon learn that was code for the one we expect to sacrifice." "What about my college?" I asked, gesturing to the acceptance letters that suddenly seemed like cruel jokes. "You can start at the state university," my father explained, his tone suggesting this solution was perfectly reasonable. "With your grades, you might qualify for some partial scholarships. You can work part-time and take out student loans for the rest. After 2 years, maybe you can transfer to one of these schools if you still want to." The meticulous plan I'd crafted for my future dissolved before my eyes. 4 years at a top computer science program, internships at leading tech companies, followed by either graduate school or a position at an innovative startup. That pathway, the one I'd worked toward since I was 14 and built my first application, was being casually rerouted. "We know you're disappointed," my mother added when I remained silent. "But Sophia is at a critical point in her education. She can't pause now. Your sister is going to be a doctor, Alexandra. Think of all the lives she'll save." The implication was clear. My sister's dream was worth sacrificing mine. I didn't cry or scream or plead. Instead, I gathered my acceptance letters, carefully returned them to their envelopes, and walked to my bedroom. For hours, I sat on my bed, calculating and recalculating the numbers. Even with maximum student loans, part-time work, and the few small scholarships I might secure, attending any of my chosen schools would be impossible without that fund. That night marked the first significant fork in my road. The moment when I realized that sometimes the people who are supposed to champion your dreams might be the ones who sacrifice them for someone else's. The following morning, I came downstairs, with swollen eyes but resolved determination. My parents were at the kitchen table, speaking in hushed tones that immediately ceased when I appeared. "I've made a decision," I announced, pouring myself a cup of coffee. I'm not going to college. Right now. Their reactions were immediate and predictable. Shock, concern, disappointment that their practical daughter would make such an impractical choice. "This is about the money, isn't it?" my father asked. "Don't be dramatic, Alexandra." Student. "Loans are normal. Most of your friends will be taking them." "This isn't about being dramatic," I replied calmly. "It's about being strategic. If I can't attend the programs that will best position me for the career I want, I'm not going to waste money on a compromise. So, what's your plan?" My mother's voice carried that familiar tone of skepticism she reserved for my ideas she deemed unrealistic. "Live at home forever? Work at the mall?" "I've been offered a position at Cyber Solutions," I said, referencing the small tech company where I'd interned the previous summer. "It's entry-level tech support, but they have tuition reimbursement after a year. I'll work, save money, take some online courses, and apply again when I can afford the schools I want." What I didn't tell them was the other half of my plan, the part that had formed in the darkness of my bedroom the night before. I would build something of my own. The application I'd been tinkering with for months could be more than a hobby project. It could be a business. My parents exchanged glances. This wasn't the tantrum they'd expected. This was calculated, and that concerned them more. "What about your sister's graduation next month?" my mother asked, changing tactics. "We've all planned to attend. You've already bought your dress." "I'll be there," I promised. "This isn't about punishing Sophia. She didn't take my money. You gave it to her." The distinction was important to me. In the years that followed, maintaining a relationship with my sister while establishing appropriate boundaries with my parents would prove one of my greatest challenges. 2 weeks later, I started at Cyber Solutions. The work was mind-numbing, explaining to frustrated customers how to reset passwords and update software, but it paid $15 an hour and offered health insurance. I rented a tiny studio apartment with a former classmate who was attending community college and established a rigid budget that allowed me to save 30% of every paycheck. By day, I answered phone calls and troubleshot basic technical problems. By night, I worked on my application, a platform that simplified data analysis for small businesses that couldn't afford enterprise-level solutions. I coded until my eyes burned, fueled by a combination of youthful stamina and the quiet rage of having to prove my worth. 6 months into this new life, I received a call from my mother. She sounded unusually hesitant. "We're having a family dinner on Sunday," she said. "Your sister is home for the weekend. It would be nice if you joined us." I had been keeping my distance, limiting contact to occasional text messages and brief phone calls. "I'll check my schedule," I replied non-committally. "Alexandra, it's been months," she sighed. "Your father and I were just trying to make the best decision for both our daughters. Sophia asks about you constantly. Please don't punish everyone because you're upset with us." The framing was so perfect. I was the unreasonable one holding a grudge, not the daughter whose future had been compromised for her sister's benefit. "I'm not upset," I said, surprising myself with the realization that it was mostly true. "I'm busy building my life." I did attend that dinner, arriving with a bottle of wine I could barely afford. Sophia hugged me tightly, genuinely happy to see me. She looked exhausted, her medical program clearly as demanding as expected. My parents were cautiously welcoming, asking surface-level questions about my job and apartment. "How's the app coming along?" Sophia asked as we cleared plates. After dinner, she was the only one I'd told about my side project, during a rare, honest conversation right before I moved out. "Slowly," I admitted. "But I've secured my first beta tester, a local bakery willing to try it for their inventory management." "That's impressive." Her smile was genuine. "I wish I understood what you do. Mom and Dad have always understood my path better than yours." There was no malice in her observation, just an acknowledgement of a truth we both recognized. Our parents valued what they comprehended, and medicine made more sense to them than technology. "It's fine," I said, though we both knew it wasn't. "How's Johns Hopkins?" "Brutal," she admitted. "Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it." I paused, plates in hand. "Is it?" She considered this longer than I expected. "Most days. Other days I think about the pressure, the expectations, the loans, the years ahead of residency. It's suffocating sometimes." For a moment, I glimpsed the weight my sister carried, the golden child status that came with its own burdens. It didn't excuse my parents' decision, but it contextualized Sophia's unwitting role in it. As I drove home that night, I felt something shift within me. The anger that had fueled my initial determination was evolving into something more sustainable, ambition untethered from the need for validation. I wasn't building my future to prove my parents wrong. I was building it because it was mine to build. The next morning, I woke before dawn and returned to my code with renewed focus. The application was taking shape, becoming more sophisticated than my original concept. I'd identified a gap in the market that larger companies overlooked. Small businesses needed data analysis tools that didn't require a dedicated IT department to implement and maintain. 3 months later, I secured my second client through a connection at Cyber Solutions. A month after that, I had 5 businesses using my platform, providing valuable feedback that helped me refine its functionality. I was still answering support calls during the day, but my nights and weekends were devoted to what increasingly felt like my real work. On the 1-year anniversary of starting at Cyber Solutions, I was called into my manager's office. Derek was a fair boss who had given me consistent positive reviews. "Alexandra, you're eligible for the tuition reimbursement program now," he said, sliding a form across his desk. "Any thoughts about going back to school?" I hesitated. A year ago, I would have jumped at this opportunity. Now, I wasn't certain. "Actually, I've been thinking about something else," I admitted. "I've developed a data analysis platform for small businesses. It's still in beta, but I've got paying clients and positive feedback." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Derek leaned forward, genuinely interested. "Show me." I pulled out my laptop and demonstrated the platform's capabilities. Derek asked insightful questions and pointed out potential improvements. By the end of our impromptu meeting, he wasn't just impressed. He was intrigued. "We have some clients who could use something like this," he said thoughtfully. "Would you be open to Cyber Solutions becoming a partner? We could offer it as an add-on service to our existing customers." This wasn't a direction I had anticipated, but the opportunity was too significant to dismiss. "I'd need to maintain ownership of the intellectual property," I said, surprising myself with my business. "Acumen, but I'm open to a partnership arrangement." Derek nodded. "Let me talk to the executive team. This could be good for both of us." 2 weeks later, I signed my first partnership agreement. Cyber Solutions would market my platform to their small business clients, providing a steady stream of new users. In return, they received 25% of the subscription fees, and I retained full ownership of the software. Additionally, they offered to reduce my hours answering support calls so I could focus on development while maintaining my full benefits. That evening, I called my sister, the only family member who had consistently supported my unconventional path. "Sophia, it's happening," I said when she answered. "The partnership with Cyber Solutions is official. I might actually make this work?" "I never doubted you would," she replied, her voice warm despite the exhaustion that seemed to be her constant companion. "You've always been the brilliant one, Alex." "How are things there?" I asked, hearing the strain beneath her encouragement. She sighed. "Challenging. I'm struggling in my cardiovascular rotation. Dad called yesterday asking how I'm doing. I made the mistake of being honest about finding it difficult, and he immediately offered to send money, as if that would magically make me better at identifying heart murmurs. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. The daughter they had invested everything in was struggling, while the one they had financially abandoned was beginning to thrive. You know, Sophia added hesitantly, they ask about you. They're proud of you, even if they don't understand what you're doing. I wasn't ready to let that sentiment touch me. They're proud now that it looks like I might succeed, despite their lack of support. That's different from believing in someone from the beginning. The silence that followed acknowledged the truth of my words. Anyway, I continued, changing the subject. Tell me about your roommate drama. Last time we talked, she was leaving passive-aggressive notes about the bathroom schedule. As Sophia launched into a story about her living situation, I felt gratitude for our preserved relationship. We had managed to separate our bond from the comparative framework our parents had established between us. In the coming years, that distinction would prove invaluable to us both. The following months brought rapid changes. My platform, now officially named DataSense, grew from 5 clients to 50, then to over 200 within a year. I hired my first employee, a part-time developer who helped manage the increasing technical demands. Cyber Solutions followed through on their promise to reduce my support duties, eventually transitioning me to a consultant role focused exclusively on DataSense. I moved from my shared apartment to a modest one-bedroom of my own. I bought new furniture, replaced my failing laptop with a high-performance development machine, and even started contributing to a retirement account. All milestones that felt significant after my initial financial setback. What I didn't do was contact my parents about these developments. They learned about my progress through Sophia, who served as our reluctant intermediary. Occasionally, they would text generic messages, "Hope you're doing well," or "thinking of you on your birthday." I would respond with equally bland acknowledgments, maintaining a connection that was little more than a technicality. 2 years after, starting at Cyber Solutions, I faced a pivotal decision. DataSense had outgrown our partnership arrangement. We had over 500 clients, and I was turning down opportunities because we lacked the infrastructure to support more rapid expansion. I needed investment to scale properly, but that would mean either taking on debt or sacrificing equity. After weeks of deliberation and countless spreadsheets analyzing different scenarios, I scheduled a meeting with Derek, who had become something of a mentor. I need to establish DataSense as an independent company, I explained, presenting my business plan. The partnership with Cyber Solutions has been invaluable, but to grow further, I need resources that go beyond our current arrangement. Derek nodded, unsurprised. I've been expecting this conversation. You've outgrown us, and that's as it should be. He slid a folder across the table. What you might not be expecting is this. Our CEO wants to make you an offer. The folder contained a formal acquisition proposal. Cyber Solutions wanted to purchase DataSense outright for a sum that made my hands tremble when I saw it. This is substantial, I managed, trying to maintain my composure. It's fair market value for what you've built, Derek replied. Plus, they're offering you a senior position leading future development. You'd have resources, a team, benefits, stability. Stability. The word resonated with unexpected force. Isn't that what I had been seeking since that day at my parents' kitchen table? The security that had been promised and then withdrawn. I need time to think about this, I said, closing the folder. Of course. Take a week. But Alexandra, Derek added, his expression serious. This is a good offer. Don't reject it just because it feels like giving up your independence. Sometimes the smartest move is joining forces with people who value what you've created. That night, I called the one person whose perspective I trusted implicitly. Sophia, I need your advice, I said when she answered. Cyber Solutions wants to buy DataSense. I explained the offer, including the financial details and career implications. "That's incredible," she said when I finished. "Are you going to accept?" "I don't know," I admitted. "The money would set me up for years. I could even go back to school if I wanted to. But it doesn't feel like it's yours anymore if you sell," she finished my thought. "Exactly. Am I being irrational? This is the kind of security most people dream about." Sophia was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something I've never told anyone?" she finally asked. "Of course. I hate medical school, not the medicine part. I love that. But the program, the pressure, the competitive environment. Every day feels like I'm trying to live up to expectations that have nothing to do with being a good doctor and everything to do with prestige and status." Her confession stunned me. "But you're almost finished. You've invested so much." "That's what I keep telling myself," she sighed. "But lately I've been wondering, what if I had chosen differently? What if I had gone into family medicine instead of surgery, or worked in underserved communities instead of aiming for the most competitive specialties? Would I be happier? More fulfilled?" I understood the parallel she was drawing. "You think I should turn down the acquisition?" "I think you should ask yourself what success really means to you," she clarified. "Is it financial security? Professional recognition? Or is it creating something meaningful on your terms? There's no wrong answer, but don't let other people's definitions determine yours." After we hung up, I sat with her words, recognizing their wisdom. My journey had never been about proving my parents wrong or achieving conventional success. It was about building something I believed in, something that reflected my values and vision. The next morning I called Derek. "I'm grateful for the offer," I told him, "but I'm going to decline. I want to grow DataSense independently." "I figured you might say that," he replied, not sounding particularly disappointed. "In that case, I have something else to propose. Cyber Solutions isn't the only one interested in what you're building. I know some investors who might be willing to provide capital without taking control." Those introductions proved transformative. Within months, I secured seed funding that allowed me to hire a proper team, lease office space, and accelerate development. DataSense transitioned from a partnership with Cyber Solutions to an independent entity with its own identity and growth trajectory. As my 25th birthday approached, marking 3 years since the conversation that had altered my life's course, I received an unexpected call from my father. "Alexandra," he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "Your mother and I would like to take you to dinner for your birthday. Somewhere nice, our treat." I hesitated, surprised by the invitation. "Is Sophia coming too?" I asked. "She has exams," he explained. "But she thought it would be good for us to see you. She says you're doing well." The understatement was almost comical. DataSense was now valued at over $2 million and growing rapidly. I had a team of 8 employees and had recently been featured in a regional business publication as an emerging tech entrepreneur. "I suppose we could do dinner," I conceded, curiosity overcoming my reservations. We met at an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind my parents reserved for special occasions. My mother hugged me tentatively when I arrived, as though unsure of her welcome. My father shook my hand, an oddly formal gesture that highlighted our estrangement. "You look well," my mother offered as we were seated. "Your hair is different." I had cut my long hair into a practical bob and added highlights, a change that had occurred over a year ago. "Work keeps me busy," I replied, deflecting further. "Personal observations." My father cleared his throat. "Sophia tells us your business is doing very well. Some kind of data company?" "DataSense," I confirmed. "We provide analytics solutions for small to medium businesses." "And you have employees?" "Now, an office?" my mother asked. I nodded, sipping my water. 8 full-time staff, plus some contractors. We moved into proper office space downtown about 6 months ago. That's impressive, my father said, studying me with new interest. You've accomplished all this without a degree? The question carried old wounds, but I kept my voice neutral. Formal education isn't the only path to success. My experience and technical skills have been sufficient. An uncomfortable silence followed, broken only when the waiter arrived to take our orders. As he departed, my mother reached across the table to touch my hand, a gesture so unexpected I nearly pulled away. Alexandra, we're very proud of what you've accomplished, she said, her eyes sincere. We may not understand exactly what your company does, but we recognize how hard you've worked. The validation I had once desperately craved now felt hollow. Thank you, I replied, not unkindly but without the enthusiasm they clearly hoped for. We've been thinking, my father added, about how things happened with your college plans. Looking back, we may have made a mistake. The admission coming 3 years too late landed awkwardly between us. It's worked out, I said simply. Everything happened as it needed to. The dinner continued with strained small talk and careful navigation around sensitive topics. As dessert arrived, my father finally broached what I suspected was the real purpose of this reconciliation attempt. We've been having some financial discussions recently, he began, planning for retirement. Your mother wants to stop teaching next year, and my position at the firm isn't as secure as it once was. Waited, already anticipating where this was headed. We've been looking at investment options, he continued, ways to ensure our savings last through retirement, and it occurred to us, with your business doing so well, perhaps there might be an opportunity there. The audacity was breathtaking. You want to invest in data sense? I clarified, wanting to hear him say it explicitly. If that's a possibility, he confirmed. We have some savings that could be put to good use in a growing company. And it would be nice to support your work, be part of what you're building. Translation. Now that I had proven myself worthy of their investment, they wanted to benefit from my success. The college fund they had redirected away from me was nothing compared to what they now hoped to gain from the company I had built without their support. I appreciate the interest, I said carefully. But we're not accepting new investors at this stage. Our current funding round is closed. My father looked disappointed but not surprised. Perhaps in the future? Perhaps, I replied noncommittally. Business decisions are made based on strategic needs, not personal relationships. My mother's expression fell. We were hoping to be part of your success, Alexandra, to make up for our past mistakes. You don't need to invest in my company to be part of my life, I pointed out. Those are separate considerations. The drive home from that dinner gave me much to contemplate. My parents' overture, transparent, as it was, represented an acknowledgement of sorts. They recognized what I had built. They wanted access to it. In their own way, they were attempting to re-establish connection, albeit with questionable motivations. As I pulled into my apartment complex, my phone rang. Sophia's name appeared on the screen. How was dinner? She asked without preamble. About as expected, I replied. They're proud of me now that I'm successful, and they want to invest in data sense. Sophia's laugh was sympathetic. Of course they do. What did you say? That we're not accepting new investors currently. Good for you. Her approval warmed me more than my parents' belated pride had. You know, I've been thinking about what you said during our last conversation, about choosing your own path. I've made a decision. About? I'm switching to family medicine, she announced. I told Mom and Dad yesterday. They're adjusting to the idea. I could imagine their reaction to this deviation from the prestigious surgical career they had envisioned for her. Are you sure? After all the time you've invested? That's exactly why I'm doing it. I don't want to invest more years going down a path that doesn't feel right. You taught me that, Alex. Watching you build something on your own terms made me realize I deserve the same opportunity. As our conversation continued, I felt a profound sense of connection with my sister, one based on mutual respect and understanding, rather than the competitive dynamic our parents had fostered. We had both found our way to authentic choices, albeit through different routes. The following week, I received a formal email from my father, presenting a detailed investment proposal for DataSense. It included the amount they wished to invest, the terms they expected, and potential tax advantages they hoped to gain. The methodical approach was so characteristic of him, treating our relationship as a transaction to be negotiated. I forwarded the proposal to my financial advisor with a brief note. Thoughts on this offer? Personal considerations aside, does it make business sense? His response was unequivocal. Terms are unfavorable compared to your current investors. Would not recommend accepting regardless of source. Armed with professional validation, I composed a reply to my father. After consultation with my advisors, I must decline your investment proposal. DataSense is currently focused on strategic growth with our existing investment partners. I appreciate your interest and wish you success with your retirement planning. Professional, courteous, final. My phone rang minutes after I sent the email. My father, predictably. Alexandra, I think you're making a mistake, he began without greeting. We're offering you family terms. The terms aren't competitive with our existing investors, I replied evenly. And mixing family with business rarely ends well. This feels personal, he pressed, like you're punishing us for the college fund situation. I took a deep breath. It's not personal, it's business. But since you've brought it up, yes, there is a certain irony in you seeking investment opportunities from me now, given past decisions. We did what we thought was best at the time, he defended, and it clearly worked out. Look at what you've accomplished. I accomplished it despite your decisions, not because of them, I clarified. And that's precisely why I won't accept your investment. My company succeeded because I make sound business choices, not emotional ones. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken recriminations and realizations. I understand, he finally said, his tone resigned. We'll find other investment options. After we hung up, I sat in my office, looking out at the skyline visible from my window. The journey from that kitchen table conversation to this moment had been transformative in ways I couldn't have imagined. I had built something valuable, not just a successful company, but a life defined by my choices rather than others' expectations. My intercom buzzed, interrupting my reflections. Your 3 o'clock is here, my assistant announced. I straightened my desk and prepared to meet with a potential client, a small manufacturing company looking to optimize their production data. As I walked to the conference room, I passed the framed copy of my first partnership agreement with Cyber Solutions, now hanging on the wall as a reminder of how far we'd come. The path hadn't been what I planned. It had been better, more challenging, more authentic, and ultimately more rewarding than the predetermined route I had once expected to follow. In denying me the traditional path, my parents had inadvertently pushed me toward creating something uniquely mine. And as I greeted the nervous small business owner who reminded me of myself 3 years earlier, I realized the most valuable lesson of my journey. Sometimes being denied the security you were promised forces you to build something far more enduring, the unshakable confidence that comes from creating your own foundation. The early years of my life had been meticulously planned by parents who believed in structure, preparation, and strategic advantage. My father, Richard Reeves, was a financial advisor at a mid-sized firm that catered to upper-middle-class clients. He approached parenting with the same methodical attention he applied to investment portfolios, identifying potential growth opportunities, mitigating risks, and maximizing returns on resources invested. My mother, Elizabeth, had taught high school economics for 25 years, her classroom demeanor seamlessly extending into our home life with lessons on compound interest during dinner and budget spreadsheets for our allowances. Our suburban home in Oak Ridge was comfortable but not lavish, a 4-bedroom colonial in a good school district where education was prioritized and competition was fierce. From my earliest memories, the message was clear. Academic excellence wasn't merely encouraged, it was expected. The refrigerator door served as a gallery for A-plus papers, achievement certificates, and newspaper clippings of scholastic recognition. My sister Sophia arrived in the world first, establishing the standards I would be measured against. 2 years my senior, she possessed a natural academic grace that made high achievement seem effortless. While she occasionally struggled with mathematical concepts, her gifts in biology, chemistry, and verbal reasoning marked her early as future doctor material in our parents' eyes. The living room mantel chronicled her journey through science fair trophies, debate team medals, and eventually, her acceptance letter to Johns Hopkins pre-med program displayed in a custom frame. I followed a different intellectual path. While Sophia dissected frogs and memorized anatomical terms, I disassembled computers and taught myself programming languages. By 12, I had built my first rudimentary website. By 14, I had created a basic inventory management application for my father's office. But my parents regarded my technological aptitude with cautious appreciation rather than the enthusiastic endorsement they showed for Sophia's medical ambitions. Computers are certainly important, my father would say, but medicine is a solid, respected profession with guaranteed demand. People will always need doctors. This subtle hierarchy of parental approval was never explicitly stated but was communicated through 1,000 small signals. The extra driving time invested in Sophia's science enrichment programs, the premium microscope that appeared for her 16th birthday compared to my refurbished laptop, the way my mother would interrupt conversations about my coding projects to ask Sophia about her latest biology exam. Despite this, my childhood wasn't unhappy. I found joy in the logic and creativity of programming, spending hours in my room crafting increasingly complex applications. The internet became my primary teacher, offering tutorials, forums, and communities where my skills were recognized and valued. While my parents attended Sophia's debate competitions with polished shoes and video cameras, I participated in online hackathons where strangers from across the globe appreciated what I could build. School was never challenging enough to require significant effort. I maintained perfect grades almost reflexively, completing assignments with methodical precision while my mind wandered to the coding problems I wanted to solve. My teachers recognized my aptitude, occasionally providing more advanced work or recommending summer programs, but the standardized curriculum rarely engaged my full capabilities. Alexandra could be doing more, my computer science teacher told my parents during a conference in my sophomore year. She's completing AP-level work as a sophomore. Have you considered college courses? My parents nodded politely, filed away the suggestion, and continued driving Sophia to her MCAT prep courses each weekend. The pattern was familiar enough that I felt no particular sting of disappointment. What did affect me was their approach to our financial futures. From my earliest memory, my parents had emphasized the importance of their specialized college savings accounts. "We've been putting away money for your education since before you were born," my mother would explain during financial literacy lessons at the dining table. "By the time you're ready for college, your fund will cover a quality education if you maintain the grades to earn admission." This fund represented more than money. It was the tangible evidence of their commitment to our futures, the security that would launch us into adulthood on solid footing. Throughout high school, as I researched top computer science programs and calculated tuition costs, that promised fund remained the foundation of my planning. Stanford's computer science program costs nearly $80,000 per year with room and board, I remarked once during my junior year. That's why we planned ahead, my father replied with the satisfied tone of someone who had anticipated and solved a complex problem. Your college fund has been growing for 17 years. As long as you earn the acceptance, the finances are handled. This assurance shaped my aspirations and efforts. I targeted the most competitive computer science programs in the country, knowing that financial constraints wouldn't limit my options. When other students discussed the burden of impending student loans, I felt grateful for my parents' foresight. The safety net they had constructed allowed me to aim higher than I might have otherwise dared. Outside our home, I had few close friends but maintained a small circle of like-minded students who shared my interest in technology. We formed the Computer Science Club at school, participated in regional coding competitions, and spent weekends working on collaborative projects that evolved from games to increasingly sophisticated applications. Marcus Chen was the closest thing I had to a best friend, a brilliant, socially awkward boy whose understanding of network architecture complemented my software development skills. His parents had emigrated from Taiwan before his birth, bringing educational values that aligned with my family's emphasis on achievement. Together, we pushed each other further than either could have gone alone. We should build something real, Marcus suggested during our junior year, as we sat in his basement surrounded by monitors. Not just competition projects or theoretical exercises, something people would actually use. That conversation sparked what became my first serious venture, a scheduling and inventory application for small retail businesses. We spent 6 months developing it, testing it with Marcus's uncle who owned a small electronics shop. The application was crude by professional standards, but functional enough to solve real problems for a small business owner. You could sell this, Marcus's uncle told us after using it for a month. I know 3 other shop owners who would pay for something this simple to use. The validation was intoxicating, concrete evidence that what we could build had actual value in the world. We created a basic website offering the software for a modest monthly subscription, and by the end of the school year, had 5 paying customers generating $250 monthly. For high school students, this felt like extraordinary success. When I excitedly shared this achievement with my parents, their response was measured. That's a nice hobby business, my father commented. Good experience for your college applications. Speaking of which, have you finished your personal statement for Stanford? Sophia's essay about her hospital volunteering really impressed the Johns Hopkins admissions committee. The comparison was so familiar, I barely registered its sting anymore. My accomplishments existed primarily as accessories to my academic profile rather than achievements worthy of celebration in their own right. Meanwhile, Sophia's pre-medical activities were treated as stepping stones in a grand, important journey. Senior year arrived with the heightened pressure of college applications. I applied to 7 schools: Stanford, MIT, Carnegie Mellon, Berkeley, Cornell, Columbia, and the State University as a safety option. My credentials were impeccable: perfect GPA, 1580 SAT, state champion in 2 coding competitions, plus the small business that now served 12 clients and generated nearly $600 monthly revenue. The acceptances began arriving in March, first MIT, then Stanford, followed by the others in quick succession. Each thick envelope represented the validation of my capabilities and the promise of world-class education in my field. I arranged them in my bedroom, periodically rereading the congratulatory language that confirmed my place among the academic elite. Sophia came home from Johns Hopkins for spring break during this period of triumph. 2 years into her medical program, she appeared perpetually exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and a tendency to fall asleep mid-conversation. But our parents regarded her fatigue as a badge of honor, evidence of her dedication to a worthy pursuit. Alexandra got into all her schools, my mother informed Sophia over dinner the evening she arrived home. That's amazing! Sophia's enthusiasm seemed genuine, Which one are you choosing? I'm leaning toward Stanford, I replied. Their computer science program is unmatched, and Silicon Valley internship opportunities would be ideal. Stanford is very expensive, my father remarked, though I detected no concern in his tone. The college fund had been discussed so often that the comment seemed merely conversational. Have you heard about my cardiovascular rotation? Sophia interjected. The attending physician asked me to assist on an actual procedure. The conversation immediately pivoted to Sophia's medical experiences, my college decisions temporarily forgotten. This dynamic was so familiar that I felt no particular disappointment, merely the quiet resignation of someone who understands exactly where they stand in the familial hierarchy. The following afternoon, I found Sophia alone in the kitchen, making a sandwich with the focused attention of someone who rarely had time for proper meals. How is medical school really? I asked, genuinely curious beyond the sanitized version she presented to our parents. She looked up, seeming to consider whether to maintain the standard narrative or offer something more authentic. Honestly, it's brutal. The workload is inhuman, the competition is toxic, and half my class is on anxiety medication. She spread mayonnaise with methodical precision. Sometimes I wonder if I chose this path or if it was chosen for me. The confession surprised me. You've always wanted to be a doctor, I said, repeating the family narrative that had been established since childhood. Sophia gave me a weary smile. Have I? Or was I just good at science and praised excessively whenever I mentioned medicine as a possibility? She cut her sandwich into precise triangles. Don't get me wrong, I respect medicine tremendously, but the pedestal our parents put it on made it almost impossible to consider alternatives. This glimpse into my sister's inner conflict remained with me in the days that followed, a crack in the perfect image of the daughter who had chosen the ideal path. It made me question whether the approval I had always envied was actually a constraint rather than a gift. 1 week after Sophia returned to Johns Hopkins, my parents called me to the kitchen table for what I assumed would be a discussion about choosing between my college acceptances. Instead, I encountered their solemn expressions and carefully clasped hands, the physical configuration they adopted when delivering difficult news. That conversation, the one where they revealed they had reallocated my college fund to Sophia's medical education, altered the trajectory of my life in ways none of us could have anticipated. In a single exchange, the safety net I had relied upon disappeared, and with it, my carefully constructed plans for the future. The aftermath of that revelation was characterized not by dramatic confrontations, but by a quiet, fundamental shift in how I understood my place within my family and my responsibility for my own future. The parents who had promised security had proven unreliable. The sister whose path was prioritized over mine was herself struggling with the weight of those expectations. The institutions that had accepted me remained desirable but financially unattainable. My decision to decline all college acceptances and accept the position at Cyber Solutions shocked my parents primarily because it represented the first significant decision I had made without prioritizing their approval. When I moved out of the family home 2 months after high school graduation, sharing a small apartment with Jessica Lynn, a former classmate who was attending community college, my mother seemed genuinely bewildered. Why move out when you could save money living at I's home? She asked as I packed my modest belongings. Your father and I wouldn't charge you rent. I need to establish my independence, I replied, carefully wrapping my computer equipment. The truth was more complex. I needed distance from the daily reminder of what had been promised and then withdrawn, from the subtle comparisons to Sophia, from the sense that my achievements would always be secondary. The tiny apartment Jessica and I shared was in an aging building with unreliable plumbing and neighbors whose arguments penetrated the thin walls. My bedroom doubled as my office, with a desk constructed from a door laid across 2 filing cabinets purchased from a thrift store. But despite its limitations, the space was mine. The first environment where my priorities and preferences weren't subordinated to family dynamics. Cyber Solutions occupied 3 floors in a modest office building downtown. The company had begun as a small IT support service for local businesses and had gradually expanded to offer more comprehensive technology solutions. My role as technical support representative represented the bottom rung of their corporate ladder, answering phones, troubleshooting basic problems, and escalating more complex issues to senior technicians. "You're overqualified," acknowledged Henry Davidson, the operations manager who hired me during my interview. "But everyone starts in support here. Prove yourself, and advancement happens quickly." The work itself was mundane, bordering on tedious, explaining to frustrated customers how to reset passwords, update drivers, or configure email settings. The problems rarely challenged my technical abilities, but they did require patience, clear communication, and the ability to maintain composure when dealing with people at their most irritated. "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" became the mantra I repeated dozens of times daily, often to executives whose technical ignorance was matched only by their indignation at having to speak with support personnel. The compensation, $15 hourly plus basic benefits after a 90-day probationary period, represented financial independence, but with minimal margin for error. After rent, utilities, groceries, and transportation costs, I managed to save approximately $400 monthly through disciplined budgeting and minimal discretionary spending. This required sacrifices: no eating out, no new clothes, streaming services shared with Jessica, and a social life limited to free or nearly free activities. My evenings and weekends belonged to DataSense, the application I had begun developing during high school, but now pursued with heightened purpose. What had started as a project with Marcus evolved into something more sophisticated as I identified a specific gap in the market. Small businesses needed data analysis capabilities but couldn't afford enterprise-level solutions or dedicated data scientists. I worked on the application at my makeshift desk, on my lunch breaks at work, and occasionally during slower periods on the support line when calls were infrequent. The code became my obsession and my solace, a world where logic prevailed, where effort yielded measurable results, and where my capabilities were the only limiting factor. 6 months into this new life, I had established routines that maximized productivity while minimizing expenses. My weekday alarm sounded at 5:30 a.m., allowing 2 hours of coding before leaving for my 8 a.m. shift at Cyber Solutions. Work ended at 5 p.m., followed by a quick dinner, often ramen or pasta, the staples of my limited culinary repertoire, and another 4 to 5 hours of development work before sleep. Weekends provided uninterrupted blocks for deeper technical challenges and the administrative aspects of securing beta testers. This schedule allowed little time for reflection on my circumstances or the maintenance of social connections. I spoke with Sophia monthly through brief phone calls that revealed her increasing disillusionment with medical education. My parents received non-committal text responses to their occasional outreach, which typically focused on logistical questions rather than meaningful connection. "Do you need anything?" my mother texted 3 months after I moved out. "We could bring some groceries by this weekend." "I'm all set, but thanks," I replied, unwilling to accept assistance that might re-establish the dynamics I had intentionally distanced myself from. The first significant validation of my independent path came when Luciana Martinez, the owner of a local bakery, agreed to implement DataSense to track inventory, sales patterns, and customer preferences. What began as a favor, she was the mother of a former classmate, transformed into enthusiastic advocacy when the application revealed purchasing patterns that allowed her to reduce waste by 23% within the first month. "This is incredible," she told me during our review meeting. "I've been baking too many almond croissants on Tuesdays when they only sell well on Fridays. And my specialty breads were selling out too early on weekends because I wasn't making enough. The data makes it so clear." Her endorsement led to 2 additional clients, a boutique clothing store and a small bookshop, each paying $50 monthly for the service. These modest successes provided not just additional income, but critical user feedback that helped refine the application's functionality and interface. The technical aspects of development presented constant challenges that stretched my capabilities. Database optimization, user interface design, security protocols, and analytics algorithms required continuous learning and problem-solving. I devoured online courses, technical documentation, and forum discussions during my limited free time, often falling asleep with my laptop still open beside me. When particularly difficult technical problems arose, I reached out to Marcus, who was now studying computer science at Carnegie Mellon. Our collaboration continued through late-night video calls and shared code repositories, his theoretical knowledge complementing my practical focus. "You're building something genuinely useful," he commented during one of our sessions. "Most of my classmates are creating impressive projects that solve imaginary problems. You're addressing real business needs." His validation mattered more than any academic credential. Recognition from someone who understood both the technical complexity and practical utility of what I was creating. Our friendship had evolved from high school peers to professional collaborators, transcending the traditional educational path I had foregone. 9 months into my employment at Cyber Solutions, an unexpected opportunity emerged. A client had requested modifications to their inventory tracking system that exceeded the company's standard offerings. During the project meeting, I mentioned that I had developed similar functionality in my personal application. "Show us," requested Derek Montgomery, the senior solutions architect who had taken an interest in my career since noticing my troubleshooting abilities exceeded what was typical for entry-level support staff. The impromptu demonstration of DataSense's capabilities marked a turning point in my professional trajectory. Derek immediately recognized the potential applications for Cyber Solutions' existing client base and arranged a formal presentation to the executive team the following week. "This addresses a pain point for dozens of our small business clients," he explained as we prepared the presentation. "They need data insights, but can't justify enterprise-level analytics platforms. Your solution bridges that gap perfectly." The executive's response exceeded my expectations. Rather than simply complementing the application, they proposed a formal partnership. Cyber Solutions would market DataSense to their existing clients as an add-on service, with revenue shared between the company and me as the developer. Additionally, they offered to reduce my support duties to part-time, allowing me to focus more hours on development while maintaining my benefits. This arrangement represented the first external validation of my unconventional path. Recognition that what I had built had legitimate market value. The partnership structure preserved my ownership of the intellectual property while providing access to an established client base and business infrastructure that would have taken years to develop independently. The night after signing the partnership agreement, I sat in my apartment contemplating how dramatically my circumstances had shifted in less than a year. The college fund that had been redirected from my future had forced me to create an alternative path that was already yielding unexpected opportunities. The security I had lost had been replaced by capabilities I might never have developed within the protective but constraining environment of traditional education. I called Sophia to share the news, our conversations having evolved into a mutual support system detached from parental expectations. "The partnership is official," I told her when she answered, the sounds of a hospital paging system audible in the background. "I'm officially a software partner with an established tech company." "That's incredible, Alex," she replied, genuine pride evident in her voice despite her obvious exhaustion. "I knew you'd make this work." "How are things there?" I asked, detecting the strain beneath her congratulations. "The usual," she sighed. 100-hour weeks, attendings who treat students like inconveniences, and the constant fear that I'll kill someone through ignorance or fatigue. But hey, At least I'm making our parents proud by pursuing the noble profession of medicine. The bitterness in her tone was becoming more pronounced with each conversation. Are you still considering switching specialties? I asked, recalling her previous mentions of moving away from surgery toward less competitive fields. More than considering, she admitted. I've been looking into family medicine programs. The prestige factor is lower, but I might actually get to sleep occasionally and remember why I wanted to help people in the first place. Have you told Mom and Dad? Her laugh held little humor. Not yet. I'm saving that conversation for when I have the strength for their disappointment. They've already paid for 2 years of future surgeon education. The thought of their investment yielding merely a family doctor might give Dad an aneurysm. Their investment, I repeated, the phrase highlighting the transactional nature of our parents' approach to our education. Is that how you see it? Isn't that how they see it? She countered. An investment with expected returns in the form of status and bragging rights. My daughter the surgeon sounds better at country club dinners than my daughter the family physician. We both fell silent, contemplating the accuracy of her assessment. For what it's worth, I finally said, I think you should do whatever will make you a better doctor and a happier person. Those things are probably connected. Says the sister who's already blazing her own trail, she replied, but her tone had softened. I'm proud of you, Alex. Genuinely proud. Not in the way they're proud of achievements they can brag about, but because you're creating something meaningful on your terms. That conversation crystallized something I had been gradually recognizing. Sophia and I were both navigating the consequences of our parents' expectations, albeit from different positions. She struggled with the weight of their approval and investment. I contended with the freedom and challenge of their redirection. Neither position was inherently better, just differently difficult. As the partnership with Cyber Solutions took effect, my daily routines shifted. I now spent mornings on development work, afternoons handling escalated support issues, and evenings on client implementation and feature enhancements. The arrangement provided stability while allowing me to build something with growth potential, a bridge between traditional employment and entrepreneurship. DataSense evolved rapidly with increased resources and user feedback. What had begun as a basic analytics tool expanded to include visualization capabilities, automated reporting, and predictive algorithms that helped businesses anticipate inventory needs based on historical patterns. Each enhancement addressed specific pain points identified through client interactions, creating a product shaped by actual market needs rather than theoretical assumptions. My personal finances stabilized with the increased income from the partnership. I moved from the shared apartment to a modest one-bedroom unit in a newer building, upgraded my development equipment, and began contributing to a retirement account. Small steps toward long-term security created entirely through my own efforts. What I didn't do was reconnect substantially with my parents. They learned of my progress primarily through Sophia, who maintained more regular contact. Our direct communications remained limited to occasional text messages and brief phone calls, on birthdays and holidays. The distance wasn't actively hostile, but reflected a fundamental understanding that our relationship had been permanently altered by their decision and my response to it. This equilibrium held for approximately 18 months after the partnership began, a period of steady growth for DataSense and professional development for me. Then came the acquisition offer from Cyber Solutions, presenting the first major decision point of my entrepreneurial journey. The choice between security and independence, between immediate reward and long-term potential, would define not just my professional future, but my understanding of what success meant on my own terms. The acquisition offer from Cyber Solutions arrived on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was working from my apartment, deep in concentration while refining a predictive algorithm for seasonal inventory fluctuations, when Derek's name appeared on my phone screen. "Do you have time to come into the office today?" he asked after our usual greetings. "There's something important we need to discuss in person." His tone carried an unusual formality that immediately piqued my interest. "Is everything okay? With the partnership?" I asked, mentally reviewing recent client interactions for any potential issues. "Everything's excellent," he assured me. "Too excellent, in fact. The executive team wants to talk about next steps. Can you be here at 2? I agreed, curiosity mounting as I prepared for the meeting. The partnership had indeed been thriving. DataSense now served over 500 clients, with new businesses implementing the platform weekly. The revenue had grown beyond my initial projections, creating a steady income stream that had transformed my financial situation from precarious to comfortable. The Cyber Solutions headquarters occupied 3 floors of a glass-fronted building, downtown. I had transitioned from working on-site daily to visiting primarily for client meetings and development consultations. The security guard greeted me by name as I entered, a small reminder of how my position had evolved from entry-level support representative to valued partner. Derek met me in the lobby, his expression betraying an excitement he was trying to contain. "They're waiting in the conference room," he said, leading me toward the executive floor. "I think you'll be pleased with what they have to say." The conference room held 5 people: the CEO, CFO, legal counsel, and 2 board members. Their presence signaled the significance of the meeting. This wasn't a routine partnership discussion, but something warranting the attention of the company's highest decision-makers. After introductions and brief pleasantries, Martin Keller, the CEO, came directly to the point. "Alexandra, your platform has exceeded all our expectations. It's become our fastest-growing service offering and receives consistently positive client feedback." I nodded, appreciating the validation but sensing there was more coming. "What began as a partnership has evolved into something more integral to our business strategy," Martin continued. "DataSense is no longer just a complementary service. It's becoming central to our value proposition for small business clients." The CFO, Patricia Hernandez, opened a leather portfolio and slid a document across the table. "We'd like to formally offer to acquire DataSense." The document contained the acquisition proposal: $175 million for complete ownership of the platform, plus a 3-year employment contract for me as Director of Data Solutions, with an annual salary of $175,000 and standard executive benefits. The numbers were substantial, life-changing for someone who had been earning $15 an hour less than 2 years earlier. "Take some time to review the details," Martin suggested. "We're prepared to be flexible on some of the terms. The important thing is bringing DataSense fully under the Cyber Solutions umbrella and ensuring you remain involved in its continued development." I maintained a composed exterior despite the emotional storm brewing beneath the surface. This offer represented financial security, professional recognition, and validation of what I had built. It was also, in many ways, the end of something I had come to cherish: my independence and complete ownership of my creation. "Thank you," I said carefully. "This is certainly substantial. I'll need to review it thoroughly." "Of course," Martin agreed. "We don't expect an immediate answer to an offer of this magnitude. Take a week to consider. Derek can answer any questions that arise in the meantime." After the meeting, Derek walked me back to the lobby, barely containing his excitement. "This is incredible, Alexandra. The executive team has never moved this quickly on an acquisition before. They see enormous potential in what you've built." "It's a lot to process," I acknowledged, my mind already calculating various scenarios and implications. "It's a good offer," Derek assured me. "Fair market value for the platform plus employment security, the best of both worlds." I nodded non-committally, unwilling to share my conflicted thoughts before I had fully processed them myself. Back in my apartment, I spread the proposal documents across my dining table, reviewing each section with meticulous attention. The terms were indeed generous. The financial aspects alone would secure my future in ways I couldn't have imagined when I'd started this journey. The employment contract offered stability, benefits, and a prestigious title that would permanently establish my professional credentials despite my lack of formal education. Yet something held me back from immediate acceptance. I found myself returning to a fundamental question. What was DataSense worth to me beyond its market value? It represented not just code and functionality, but my response to having my original path unexpectedly blocked. It was the tangible evidence that I could create something valuable entirely on my own terms. Selling it felt symbolically significant in ways that transcended financial considerations. Would I be surrendering something essential about my journey? If I allowed my creation to be absorbed into a larger entity? I needed perspective from someone who understood both the practical and emotional dimensions of this decision. After an hour of contemplation, I called Sophia, hoping to catch her during a rare break in her medical duties. "I have news," I said when she answered. The hospital sounds notably absent in the background. Cyber Solutions has offered to buy DataSense completely, for a lot of money. "Define a lot," she replied, her analytical mind immediately focusing on specifics. $1.75 million, plus a 3-year employment contract at $175,000 annually. Her sharp intake of breath was audible. "That's substantial. Are you going to accept?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Financially, it's the obvious choice. It would secure my future, provide stability, validate everything I've built." "But," she prompted, hearing the hesitation in my voice. "But it wouldn't be mine anymore," I explained. "I'd be exchanging ownership for security, creating value for someone else's company rather than building something that's fully mine." Sophia was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something I've never told anyone else?" she finally asked. "Of course. I hate medical school." Her confession, though quietly delivered, carried the weight of years of suppressed truth. I waited, sensing she had more to say. "Not the medicine," she clarified. "I love medicine, the science of it, the ability to help people. What I hate is the structure, the hierarchy, the soul-crushing competition, the way it consumes every aspect of my life without regard for balance or well-being." "Why haven't you said anything before?" I asked, though I could guess the answer. "Because of the investment," she replied, confirming my suspicion. "Not just the financial investment from Mom and Dad, though that's significant. The emotional investment, the expectations, the way my identity has become inseparable from future doctor. It's like I'm trapped by everyone's conception of who I'm supposed to be, including my own." I understood immediately the parallel. She was drawing to my current decision. "You think I should decline the acquisition?" "What I think," she said carefully, "is that you should examine what success means to you, not what it means to others. Is it financial security, professional recognition? Or is it the freedom to create something that fully reflects your vision and values?" Her question crystallized the conflict I'd been struggling to articulate. "Those aren't necessarily mutually exclusive," I pointed out. "True, but they often involve trade-offs and priorities. When I chose the most prestigious medical program over schools that might have offered better balance, I prioritized external validation over personal well-being. I'm living with the consequences of that choice daily." We talked for nearly an hour, exploring the implications of both accepting and declining the offer. Sophia asked insightful questions about my long-term vision for DataSense, my professional aspirations beyond this project, and what I would do with financial security if I achieved it through the acquisition. When we ended the call, I hadn't reached a decision, but I had clarified the real stakes involved. This wasn't simply a business transaction, but a choice about how I wanted to define success on my own terms. The following morning, I crafted a list of questions for Derek about Cyber Solutions' plans for DataSense if the acquisition proceeded. Would the platform's development direction change? How much creative control would I retain? Were there plans to integrate it with other company offerings? The answers would help determine whether selling would mean watching my creation evolve in directions I hadn't intended. Rather than calling immediately, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. The early autumn air carried a refreshing crispness as I moved through a nearby park, observing families with young children, elderly couples on benches, and solitary figures like myself, each absorbed in their own thoughts and journeys. Near the park's central fountain, I noticed a small farmer's market I hadn't seen before. Curious, I wandered through the stalls, admiring local produce, handcrafted items, and specialty foods. At one booth, a woman about my age was selling homemade preserves, each jar labeled with elegant handwriting. "First time at our market?" she asked when she noticed me examining her products. I nodded, picking up a jar of blackberry jam. "I didn't know this was here." "We're only here on Wednesdays," she explained. "It's a smaller market, but that's what makes it special. The vendors here are all small businesses with unique offerings." Something about her words resonated with my current dilemma. "Did you always make preserves?" I asked, suddenly curious about her story. She laughed. "Actually, I have a degree in marketing. I worked for a major corporation for 3 years before realizing I was deeply unhappy. Making preserves was my grandmother's passion, and I used to help her as a child. When she passed away, I found her recipe book and started making them as a way to process my grief." "And now it's your business," I observed. "Yes, though I could make more money going." "Back to corporate work," she admitted. "But there's something profoundly satisfying about creating something with my own hands, controlling every aspect of production, and connecting directly with the people who enjoy what I make. I've had offers from grocery chains to stock my products, but scaling up would mean compromising on the quality and personal touch that make them special. I purchased several jars of her preserves, but what I really bought was perspective, an unexpected gift from a stranger whose choice to prioritize creation and control over conventional success paralleled my own crossroads. Walking home with my purchases, I found clarity emerging from the fog of conflicting considerations. The acquisition offer represented certain forms of success: financial security, professional validation, mainstream recognition. But accepting it would mean surrendering other forms of success that had become increasingly important to me: creative autonomy, the ability to determine my own path, the satisfaction of building something that was wholly mine. Back in my apartment, I called Derek. "I've made my decision," I told him without preamble. "That was fast," he replied, surprise evident in his voice. "What have you decided?" "I'm declining the acquisition offer," I said, the words bringing immediate relief once spoken. "I appreciate the recognition of DataSense's value, but I'm not ready to relinquish ownership. I believe there's significant growth potential I want to explore independently." Derek's disappointment was palpable but professional. "The executive team will be disappointed. Is there any room for negotiation? Perhaps a partial acquisition, or a different structure?" "I'm open to continuing and even expanding our partnership," I clarified. "But DataSense needs to remain mine, my vision, my direction, my company." After we ended the call, I expected to feel anxiety about rejecting such a substantial offer. Instead, I experienced a profound sense of alignment, the certainty that comes from making a decision that honors your deepest values rather than external expectations or conventional definitions of success. The following week brought an unexpected development. Derek requested another meeting, this time at a coffee shop rather than Cyber Solutions headquarters. "The executive team respects your decision," he began after we had settled with our drinks. "They're disappointed but not entirely surprised. Your independence has always been evident in how you approach your work." I nodded, appreciating the understanding even as I prepared for the possibility that our partnership might be in jeopardy due to my rejection. What might surprise you, Derek continued, is that your decision has sparked significant interest from other quarters. He slid a business card across the table. This is Nathan Porter from Vanguard Ventures. They specialize in early-stage tech companies with proven products but limited capital for expansion. After hearing about your platform through industry channels, they're interested in discussing investment options that would allow you to retain majority ownership while securing capital for growth. I examined the card, the implications of this development slowly registering. You referred me to venture capitalists. Derek smiled. I mentioned your situation to a former colleague who works at Vanguard. Your story resonated with him, particularly your determination to maintain control of your creation. He thinks you're exactly the kind of founder they look for. This unexpected turn opened a third path I hadn't fully considered: external investment that would provide capital for expansion without requiring me to surrender ownership. It represented a middle ground between complete independence and acquisition, with its own unique advantages and challenges. Thank you, I said sincerely, tucking the card into my wallet. This is incredibly generous, especially after I declined. Your company's offer. I believe in what you're building, Derek replied simply. And sometimes the best partnerships aren't the ones where one entity absorbs another, but where each party maintains their identity while creating mutual benefit. 2 weeks later, I met with Nathan Porter and his team at Vanguard Ventures. Their offices occupied the top floor of a renovated industrial building, with exposed brick walls and large windows offering panoramic views of the city. The environment struck a balance between professional and creative, much like the investment approach Nathan described. We're not interested in quick exits or forcing founders out of their companies, he explained as we toured the space. Our portfolio focuses on sustainable growth with founders who have deep personal investment in their products. We provide capital, connections, and guidance while you maintain control of strategic direction. The subsequent discussion explored DataSense's current market position, growth potential, and my vision for its evolution. Nathan and his team asked incisive questions about competition, technological advantages, and scalability challenges, demonstrating both technical understanding and business acumen. What we're proposing, Nathan concluded after several hours of discussion, is a seed investment of $850,000 for a 25% equity stake. This values your company at $4 million. Significantly higher than Cyber Solutions' acquisition offer because we see long-term potential rather than immediate integration value. The proposal included board representation for Vanguard, but guaranteed my position as CEO and majority shareholder. The investment would enable office space, hiring a development team, and expanding marketing efforts beyond the Cyber Solutions partnership, all while allowing me to maintain the essential control I had been unwilling to surrender. After thorough due diligence, including consultation with an attorney specializing in startup financing, I accepted Vanguard's offer. The terms struck the balance I had been seeking, providing resources for growth while preserving my autonomy and vision. The weeks following the investment agreement transformed both DataSense and my daily reality. I leased modest office space in the same building as Vanguard, hired 3 developers and a marketing specialist, and began the transition from solo entrepreneur to company founder. These changes brought new challenges: managing people, making decisions that affected others' livelihoods, navigating the complexities of corporate structure and compliance. 6 months into this new chapter, DataSense had grown to serve over 800 clients, with a development roadmap that included advanced features for industry-specific analytics and potential expansion into medium-sized business markets. We maintained the partnership with Cyber Solutions while establishing direct sales channels and strategic relationships with other technology providers. Throughout this period of rapid growth and adjustment, I maintained minimal contact with my parents. Our interactions remained limited to holiday text messages and occasional updates relayed through Sophia. They knew I was doing something with computers, but had little understanding of what DataSense actually was or the company I was building. This changed unexpectedly one evening when I received a call from an unknown local number. Assuming it was business-related, I answered with my now standard professional greeting. Alexandra Reeves, DataSense. Alexandra, it's Dad. His voice, familiar yet strangely formal, caught me off guard. We hadn't spoken directly in nearly 8 months. Dad? Why are you calling from a different number? My phone is being repaired, he explained. I'm using your mother's old device. We were hoping we could see you. Perhaps dinner this weekend. It's been a long time. The invitation was so unexpected that I found myself agreeing before fully considering the implications. Sure, Saturday evening would work. Wonderful, he replied, genuine pleasure evident in his tone. Your mother will be delighted. Shall we say 7 o'clock at Marcello's? Marcello's was an upscale Italian restaurant where my parents had always celebrated special occasions, anniversaries, promotions, Sophia's academic achievements. The choice of venue suggested this wasn't a casual reconciliation attempt, but something more significant. Marcello's is fine, I agreed, curiosity overcoming my initial wariness. I'll see you then. After ending the call, I immediately contacted Sophia. Dad just invited me to dinner at Marcello's. Any idea what that's about? They didn't tell me they were planning to call you, she replied, sounding genuinely surprised. But they've been asking more questions about your company lately. Apparently, one of Dad's clients mentioned using some software called DataSense, and he made the connection that it might be yours. That's interesting timing, I observed, suspicion beginning to form. Have they said anything about their financial situation? Sophia hesitated. Not directly, but Mom mentioned retiring from teaching next year, and Dad made some comment about the financial markets affecting their retirement planning. Why? Just curious, I replied, though my instincts were signaling caution. I'll let you know how dinner goes. Saturday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth for early autumn. I selected my attire carefully, a tailored charcoal blazer, over a simple blouse, professional without being overly formal. The outfit projected confidence and success without ostentation, exactly the image I wanted to present. Marcello's remained unchanged from my memories. White tablecloths, soft lighting, waitstaff in formal attire, moving with practiced efficiency between tables. My parents had already been seated when I arrived, both rising to greet me with an enthusiasm that seemed slightly excessive given our extended estrangement. Alexandra, you look wonderful, my mother exclaimed, embracing me briefly. So professional. My father shook my hand, then awkwardly converted the gesture into a half-hug. It's good to see you. You've cut your hair. Over a year ago, I confirmed, taking my seat across from them. It's more practical for my schedule. Initial pleasantries occupied the first 20 minutes, safe topics like local news, the restaurant's menu changes, and neutral updates about extended family members. My parents seemed nervous, their usual confident demeanor replaced by something more tentative, almost deferential. After we ordered, my father cleared his throat in the familiar way that preceded important discussions. Sophia tells us your company is doing well, he began. Some kind of data analysis for businesses? DataSense provides analytics solutions for small to medium enterprises, I confirmed, using the concise description we had refined for investor presentations. We help businesses leverage their data for improved operational efficiency and strategic decision-making. My mother nodded as though she understood perfectly, though her expression betrayed confusion about the specifics. And you have an office now? Employees? Yes, we're located downtown. Currently, we have 7 full-time staff plus contractors for specialized functions. That's impressive, my father said, genuine admiration in his tone. Building a successful company without formal education is quite an achievement. The reference to my lack of college degree, the direct result of their decision to reallocate my education fund, hung awkwardly between us. I maintained neutral expression, refusing to either acknowledge the implied compliment or respond to the underlying history. "Thank you," I replied simply. "It's been an educational journey." Our main courses arrived, providing a natural break in the conversation. As we began eating, my mother attempted a more personal approach. "We've missed you at family gatherings," she said. "Your cousin Rachel had a baby last month. She asked about you at the shower." "I saw her announcement online," I acknowledged. "I sent a gift." "That was thoughtful," she replied, clearly searching for connection points. "We're having the usual Thanksgiving dinner this year. It would mean a lot if you could join us." Before I could respond, my father interjected with what I sensed was the real purpose of this dinner. "Alexandra, your mother and I have been discussing our financial planning recently. With her considering retirement next year and some adjustments in my client portfolio, we've been exploring diversification options for our investments." And there it was, the reason for the dinner invitation, the choice of upscale restaurant, the unusual deference in their manner. They wanted something from me. "I see," I said neutrally, taking a sip of water to gain a moment for composure. "What kind of diversification are you considering?" "Well," he continued, seeming encouraged by my engagement, "we've been looking at growth opportunities beyond traditional market investments. Private equity, emerging technologies, companies with strong potential for expansion." My mother, never as comfortable with financial discussions, added her perspective. "What your father is trying to say is that we're very proud of what you've accomplished. We'd like to support your work in a more tangible way." The irony was so perfect, it almost seemed scripted. The parents who had redirected my college fund away from my education now wanted to invest in the company I had built despite that obstacle. The circumstances had a symmetry that might have been satisfying if it weren't so transparently self-interested. "You want to invest in data sense," I stated directly, seeing no benefit in prolonging the oblique approach. My father looked relieved that I had cut to the chase. "Yes, exactly. We have some capital available that we believe would be better deployed in a growing enterprise like yours than in our current allocation. It would be mutually beneficial, supporting your continued expansion while potentially providing us with better returns than traditional investments." "And," my mother added with what seemed like genuine emotion, "it would be meaningful to be part of something you've created, to contribute to your success." I maintained a composed exterior, while internally processing both the practical proposal and its emotional implications. This moment represented a perfect inversion of our positions from 3 years earlier. Now, they were the ones seeking financial consideration, while I held the power to grant or withhold it. "I appreciate your interest," I said carefully. "Currently, DataSense has completed its initial funding round with strategic investors. We're not actively seeking additional capital at this stage." My father's expression revealed disappointment, poorly concealed beneath persistent optimism. "Perhaps when you open your next round, we could be early participants. The amount we're considering is substantial, potentially up to $200,000 if we reallocate some existing investments." The figure was both revealing and ironic, significantly more than would have been required to fund my education at Stanford or MIT. The college fund that had been insufficient for my academic future had somehow multiplied when they perceived potential benefit to themselves. "Investment decisions are made based on strategic alignment and timing," I explained in the same professional tone I used with potential business partners. "When and if we seek additional capital, those decisions will be made according to the company's needs and objectives rather than personal considerations." My mother's face fell slightly at my detached response. "We were hoping to be part of your success, Alexandra, to make up for past misunderstandings." The characterization of their decision as a misunderstanding rather than a deliberate choice with profound consequences revealed how differently we viewed our shared history. To them, redirecting my college fund had been a practical financial decision that had unexpectedly caused discord. To me, it had been a fundamental statement about my value and priority within the family. My company isn't a vehicle for personal reconciliation, I replied, keeping my tone measured despite the emotions churning beneath the surface. It's a business with responsibilities to its employees, clients, and existing investors. Investment decisions are made accordingly. The remainder of the dinner passed in strained conversation about safer topics: local restaurant openings, distant relatives' activities, innocuous community events. My parents made no further direct mention of investment possibilities, though my father occasionally steered the conversation toward my company's growth trajectory and future plans. As we prepared to leave, my mother made one final attempt at connection. Regardless of business considerations, we would love to see more of you, she said, genuine longing evident in her expression. We've missed you. I felt a momentary softening toward her, recognition that whatever their flaws and miscalculations, they were still my parents with their own complex emotions and perspectives. I'll think about Thanksgiving, I offered, not committing but not refusing outright. In the parking lot, my father handed me his business card with handwritten numbers on the back. My personal cell and email, he explained, in case you want to discuss our proposal further or just connect. I accepted the card, tucking it into my blazer pocket with a nod of acknowledgement. As I watched them drive away, I experienced a swirl of conflicting emotions: vindication at the reversal of our positions, sadness for the relationship that had been damaged, and a quiet pride in having created something valuable enough that they now sought to be part of it. The following morning, I forwarded their investment proposal to my financial advisor with a simple query: objective assessment requested, personal considerations aside. His response confirmed my instincts. Terms are unfavorable compared to your existing investment structure. Would not recommend accepting regardless of source. With professional validation supporting my initial reaction, I composed a polite but firm email declining their offer, citing DataSense's current funding status and strategic focus. The message was professional, courteous, and devoid of emotional content, treating their proposal as a business matter rather than a family reconciliation attempt. My father called within an hour of receiving the email, his tone revealing disappointment poorly masked by forced understanding. I respect your business decision, he said after minimal pleasantries, but I hope you'll reconsider when circumstances change. We'd like to be part of what you're building. I understand, I replied neutrally. Investment decisions involve many factors beyond capital availability. Strategic alignment is essential for sustainable partnerships. This feels personal, Alexandra, he pressed, abandoning the business pretense. Like you're still holding the college fund situation against us. The direct reference to what had remained largely unspoken during our dinner offered an opening for honest dialogue. It's not personal, I clarified. It's business. But yes, there is a certain irony in you seeking investment opportunities in a company I built despite rather than because of your financial decisions regarding my future. We did what we thought was best at the time, he defended. And clearly it worked out well for you. Look at what you've accomplished. I accomplished it despite your choices, not because of them, I corrected. And that's precisely why I won't accept your investment. My company succeeded because I make sound business decisions, not emotional ones. The silence that followed acknowledged truths that had remained unspoken between us for years. When he finally responded, his tone carried resignation and perhaps a glimmer of new understanding. I see, he said simply. We'll respect your decision and find other investment options. After ending the call, I sat in my office looking out at the cityscape visible through my window. The journey from that kitchen table conversation to this moment constituted a transformation I couldn't have imagined when it began, not just professionally, but in how I understood myself, success, and the true meaning of security. The security I had lost when my college fund was redirected had been replaced by something more valuable and enduring. The confidence that came from building something meaningful entirely through my own capabilities and choices. The path hadn't been what I had planned or expected, but it had led to a destination that was authentically mine in ways a predetermined route might never have allowed. As I turned back to my computer to review the day's development priorities, I felt a profound sense of alignment, the quiet certainty that comes from creating your life according to your own definition of success rather than someone else's expectations or limitations. The obstacles that had initially seemed like setbacks had become the foundation for something far more substantial than what they had replaced. The meeting that would define the next phase of DataSense's growth was scheduled for 3 weeks after I declined my parents' investment offer. Nathan Porter had arranged a presentation to Vanguard's full investment committee to secure additional funding for our expansion plans. This would be the first major capital raise since their initial investment, and the stakes were considerably higher now that we had a proven business model and growing client base. The day before the presentation, I worked late at the office, refining financial projections and market analysis slides. The downtown buildings around us gradually darkened as other businesses closed for the day, but my team remained, each focused on their respective contributions to our growth strategy. Maya Chen, our lead developer whom I'd hired away from a major tech corporation with the promise of creative freedom and equity compensation, appeared in my office doorway around 9 p.m. "You should go home and rest," she advised, leaning against the doorframe. "You've been staring at those numbers for 12 hours straight." "Just making sure everything's bulletproof for tomorrow," I replied, rubbing my eyes. Vanguard's investment committee is notoriously detail-oriented. "The projections are solid, the product is exceptional, the market need is evident," Maya counted off on her fingers. "And most importantly, we have an undefeated CEO who builds companies out of adversity." What else could they possibly need to know? Her confidence in me still felt surprising sometimes. Maya had left a 6-figure salary at a prestigious tech firm to join DataSense when we were barely beyond startup phase. Her choice had been validated as the company grew, but her initial decision had required significant faith in my vision. "Thanks for the vote of confidence," I said, saving my presentation files. But Vanguard isn't just considering additional investment in DataSense, they're evaluating whether to lead our Series A round and bring in their network of investors. This could accelerate our growth timeline by years if it goes well. "And if it doesn't?" she asked, always the pragmatist. "Then we continue on our current trajectory. Slower growth, more bootstrap mentality, careful resource allocation." I closed my laptop decisively. "Either way, DataSense moves forward." Maya nodded, satisfied with my answer. "That's why I joined this company. You've never been someone who needs external validation to believe in what you're building." Her observations struck me as particularly meaningful given my history. Perhaps the greatest gift of my parents' decision to reallocate my college fund had been forcing me to find internal validation rather than external approval. That capacity now served me well in navigating the complex landscape of business growth and investment. The next morning, I arrived at Vanguard's offices an hour before our scheduled presentation, using the time to finalize preparations and center myself for what would be a defining moment for DataSense. The conference room gradually filled with investment committee members, seasoned venture capitalists whose combined experience represented hundreds of millions in successful technology investments. "Thank you for the opportunity to present today," I began once everyone had settled. DataSense has evolved significantly since Vanguard's initial investment 18 months ago. What began as a solution for small businesses has expanded to serve over 1,200 clients across multiple sectors, with a retention rate of 94% and Net Promoter Score consistently above 85. For the next 40 minutes, I outlined our growth trajectory, market positioning, competitive advantages, and expansion strategy. The committee members asked incisive questions about scalability challenges, potential acquisitions, and our approach to emerging competitors. Each query received a direct, substantive response backed by data and strategic clarity. Your technical foundation is impressive, observed Caroline Mendez, a committee member with extensive enterprise software experience. But I'm particularly interested in your hiring philosophy. You've assembled a remarkably talented team for a company at this stage. What's your secret? The question touched on something I considered central to DataSense's success: our ability to attract exceptional talent despite competing with larger, more established companies. We offer 3 things that matter deeply to high-performing technical professionals, I explained. First, meaningful ownership through equity compensation that's more generous than industry standards. Second, genuine autonomy over how they solve problems rather than micromanaging their process. And third, connection to direct impact. Everyone sees how their work affects real businesses and improves real people's operations. So essentially, Caroline summarized, you've created the environment established companies promise but rarely deliver. Exactly, I confirmed. We can't compete on stability or resources yet, but we can offer what many technical professionals value more: the opportunity to create something meaningful with minimal bureaucratic constraints. The presentation concluded with my proposed terms for the Series A funding round: $2 million in exchange for 18% equity, valuing DataSense at $23.3 million. The figure represented significant growth from our initial valuation, but remained grounded in realistic projections and comparable market valuations. We'll need to deliberate, Nathan informed me after the final questions had been addressed. The committee will have an answer for you by the end of the week. I left Vanguard feeling cautiously optimistic. The presentation had gone well, with engaged questions that indicated genuine interest rather than perfunctory consideration. Still, venture capital decisions were notoriously unpredictable, influenced by factors ranging from market conditions to portfolio balance considerations. 3 days later, Nathan called with their decision. The committee has approved your proposal with one modification, he announced without preamble. They want to increase the investment to $5 million with the same equity percentage. They believe additional capital now will accelerate your expansion more effectively than a potential bridge round later. The approval with enhanced terms exceeded my expectations. This capital infusion would enable DataSense to expand into new markets, enhance our product's capabilities, and build a sales organization capable of driving significant growth. It represented not just financial resources, but institutional validation of what we were building. That's excellent news, I replied, maintaining professional composure despite the excitement building within me. I'll have our legal team review the modified terms immediately. After completing the call, I allowed myself a moment of private celebration, a deep breath and quiet acknowledgement of this milestone. Then, I convened our leadership team to share the news and begin planning the next phase of DataSense's evolution. With funding secured, we entered a period of rapid growth and transformation. Over the following months, DataSense expanded from 7 employees to 23, moved to larger office space, and launched advanced features that positioned us to serve medium-sized enterprises alongside our core small business market. Revenue grew steadily, with monthly recurring revenue exceeding $250,000 by the 6-month mark after funding. This period of expansion brought new challenges that tested my leadership capabilities in unexpected ways. Managing a larger team required different skills than building a product or securing investment. Cultural cohesion, communication systems, and decision-making processes that had functioned organically in our early stages now needed deliberate attention and structure. We need to formalize our development roadmap process, Maya informed me. During one particularly challenging week, when competing priorities had created confusion among our engineering team. The CEO decides everything approach worked when we were 8 people. It doesn't scale to 20 plus. She was right. Of course. My instinct for maintaining control over every aspect of the business needed to evolve into something more sustainable. This realization prompted a systematic evaluation of my role and responsibilities, identifying areas where I needed to delegate authority while maintaining strategic oversight. We implemented structured decision-making frameworks, clarified department responsibilities, and established regular communication rhythms that reduced dependency on me as the central information node. These changes weren't merely operational adjustments, but represented a fundamental evolution in my leadership approach, from founder to CEO, from individual contributor to organizational architect. Throughout this transformation, I maintained minimal contact with my parents. Our interaction remained limited to occasional text messages acknowledging birthdays and major holidays. They had respected my decision regarding their investment proposal, making no further direct attempts to insert themselves into my business affairs. Through Sophia, I learned they had ultimately invested in a conservative real estate development project that aligned better with their risk tolerance and expertise. Sophia herself was navigating significant changes. After completing her medical degree, she had indeed chosen family medicine over surgery, disappointing our parents, but finding greater personal fulfillment in a specialty that aligned with her values and desired lifestyle. She had accepted a position at a community health center in an underserved neighborhood, combining meaningful work with more sustainable hours than hospital-based specialties would have required. Mom and Dad are adjusting to the reality of having a mere family physician for a daughter, she told me during one of our regular phone conversations. Dad still occasionally mentions surgical fellowships I could pursue if I ever change my mind. I think they're mourning the prestige more than questioning my actual career choice. How does that feel? I asked, recognizing parallels between her experience and my own deviation from parental expectations. Liberating, she replied. Without hesitation. For the first time, I'm practicing medicine because it fulfills me, not because it fulfills someone else's vision of success. I'm treating patients who genuinely need care, rather than pursuing accolades or prestige cases. Her journey mirrored mine in significant ways. We had both ultimately chosen paths defined by our own values rather than external expectations. The difference was that I had been forced into independence by circumstance, while she had chosen it despite having their continued support. I'm proud of you, I told her sincerely. Making that choice with their financial backing still intact took genuine courage. Different kind of courage than building a company from nothing, she observed. But thank you. Your example helped me find my own path. Watching you create something meaningful on your terms made me question whether I was doing the same. Our conversation highlighted something I had been increasingly recognizing. The obstacle that had initially seemed like a devastating setback had ultimately become the foundation for something more valuable than what it had replaced. Being denied the traditional path had forced me to create an alternative that better aligned with my authentic capabilities and aspirations. This perspective was reinforced when I received an unexpected email from Professor James Wilson, the computer science teacher who had recognized my potential in high school. He had discovered DataSense through an industry publication and connected the company to his former student. I always knew you would create something significant, he wrote. Though I admit I expected it would happen after Stanford or MIT, not instead of them. Your journey demonstrates what I've always told my students. Education should serve talent, not constrain it. Some of the most innovative minds find conventional paths too limiting for their creativity and vision. His message prompted reflection on how differently my professional identity had developed compared to my original expectations. Without the credential of an elite computer science degree, I had been forced to rely entirely on demonstrable capabilities and tangible results. This necessity had shaped both my approach to business and my leadership philosophy, valuing proven performance over pedigree, practical solutions over theoretical elegance. As DataSense approached its third anniversary, an opportunity arose that highlighted this distinctive perspective. Athena Technologies, a larger competitor with significant venture backing and impressive growth metrics, approached us regarding potential acquisition. Their CEO, Martin Reynolds, suggested an initial conversation to explore whether our companies might align strategically. "We've been watching DataSense with interest," Martin explained during our first meeting at a neutral location, a private dining room at an upscale restaurant downtown. "Your approach to the small and mid-sized business market is particularly impressive. Your customer acquisition costs and retention metrics exceed industry standards by significant margins." "Thank you," I replied, maintaining professional composure, while internally noting that their interest confirmed our strategic positioning. "We've been focused on solving real problems for businesses that larger platforms tend to overlook or overcomplicate." Martin nodded appreciatively. "That's precisely what caught our attention. Athena has penetrated the enterprise market effectively, but our attempts to scale down our solutions for smaller businesses haven't yielded comparable results. Your platform seems purpose-built for that segment." The conversation continued, with explorations of our respective technologies, market approaches, and growth trajectories. Martin was clearly building toward an acquisition proposition, though he approached the topic with appropriate patience and subtlety. "I believe there could be significant synergies between our companies," he finally stated as dessert was served. Athena's enterprise capabilities combined with DataSense's SMB focus could create a comprehensive offering across the full business spectrum. "Would you be open to discussing a potential acquisition scenario?" The question represented exactly the type of opportunity I had once imagined as the ultimate validation: a successful exit via acquisition by a larger, established company. In my original career vision, this would have been an unequivocal victory, the definitive proof of success. Yet now, facing this actual possibility, I found my perspective had evolved significantly. "I appreciate Athena's interest," I replied carefully. "We're certainly open to strategic conversations. However, I should be transparent that we're committed to our independence and continued growth trajectory. Any potential combination would need to preserve the essence of what makes DataSense effective for our market segment." Martin's expression revealed both respect and calculation. Of course, the most successful acquisitions maintain what makes the acquired company valuable while providing resources for accelerated growth. What if we discussed a structure where DataSense would operate as a distinct division within Athena, with you continuing to lead it while gaining access to our resources and distribution channels? The proposal was sophisticated and thoughtfully constructed, offering autonomy within a larger framework rather than complete absorption. It represented a genuine attempt to address the concerns I had implied, rather than simply presenting standard acquisition terms. "That's certainly a more interesting approach than conventional acquisition," I acknowledged. "I'd need to understand the specifics of governance, resource allocation, and strategic independence before considering such an arrangement." "Absolutely reasonable," Martin agreed. "Why don't I have our team prepare a detailed proposal along those lines for your consideration? No commitments, just a concrete framework for you to evaluate." I agreed to review their proposal, maintaining professional engagement while internally processing what this development meant for DataSense's future and my own leadership journey. The conversation concluded with mutual expressions of respect and arrangements for continued dialogue. During the drive back to my office, I found myself contemplating how profoundly my definition of success had evolved since beginning this journey. 3 years earlier, an acquisition offer from a company like Athena would have represented unambiguous achievement, validation, security, and professional recognition all in one package. Now, having built something substantial through my own vision and effort, the calculation was entirely different. Success wasn't defined by external validation or conventional milestones, but by the integrity of what we were creating and its alignment with our core values. An acquisition that compromised those elements, no matter how financially attractive, would represent regression rather than advancement. Back at the office, I found Maya working late on a particularly complex feature implementation. "How was your mysterious dinner meeting?" she asked, looking up from her monitors. "Interesting," I replied, settling into the chair across from her desk. "Athena Technologies wants to acquire us." Her expression shifted instantly from curiosity to concern. "Are you considering it?" "I'm open to reviewing their proposal," I said carefully, "but I have significant reservations about any arrangement that would compromise what we've built here." Maya studied me intently. 3 years ago, would you have felt the same way?" The question was perceptive, cutting directly to the evolution in my thinking. "Probably not," I admitted. Back then, I might have seen acquisition as the ultimate validation, proof that what I'd built had real value in the marketplace. And now? Now, I understand that market validation is just one form of value, and not necessarily the most important one. I gestured around us at the office space we had created, the physical manifestation of our company's culture and purpose. What we've built here matters beyond its market price. The way we solve problems, the environment we've created for our team, the relationships we've established with our clients, these have intrinsic value that transcends financial metrics. Maya nodded slowly. That's why most of us are here, instead of at larger companies that would pay more or offer greater stability. We're building something that matters in the way it exists, not just for what it might be worth to someone else. Her articulation crystallized my own thinking. DataSense had value beyond what could be captured in acquisition terms or valuation multiples. It represented a particular approach to solving problems, serving clients, and creating a work environment that aligned with our collective values. These elements might be compromised or lost entirely in an acquisition, regardless of initial promises about autonomy and preservation. When Athena's formal proposal arrived the following week, it was indeed thoughtfully constructed and generous. By conventional standards, they offered $32 million for complete acquisition, a significant premium over our recent valuation, with a 2-year earn-out structure providing additional compensation based on performance metrics. The proposal included commitments to maintain DataSense as a distinct division with my continued leadership and preserved decision-making authority over product development and market strategy. By external measures, it was an excellent offer. Financially, attractive, professionally respectful, and structured to address obvious concerns about autonomy and continued influence. Many founders would have accepted immediately, recognizing a favorable exit opportunity that acknowledged both the financial and strategic value of what they had built. I shared the proposal with our leadership team without immediately revealing my own inclinations. Their responses reflected the culture we had cultivated, thoughtful consideration of both opportunities and potential compromises inherent in such an arrangement. The resources would accelerate our growth dramatically, noted our operations director. Their enterprise sales channels alone would expand our reach beyond what we could achieve independently for years. But at what cost to our development philosophy? Countered Maya. Their technical architecture and approach are fundamentally different from ours. Integration, even with promised autonomy, would inevitably create pressure to align with their established systems and methodologies. The financial security is significant, observed our CFO pragmatically. This represents exceptional return on investment for our early stage, providing security regardless of market fluctuations or competitive pressures. I listened to their perspectives without indicating my own inclinations, valuing the diverse considerations they raised. After the discussion concluded, I retreated to my office to contemplate what had become a genuinely difficult decision. Unlike my immediate rejection of my parents' investment proposal, this opportunity required serious consideration of complex factors and legitimate trade-offs. Late that evening, seeking perspective outside our immediate business context, I called. Sophia. I've received an acquisition offer, I explained after brief pleasantries. Substantial, respectful of our independence, financially attractive by any objective measure. But you're hesitating, she observed, instantly detecting the uncertainty in my tone. Yes. Why? The question was simple yet profound, cutting directly to the heart of my ambivalence. Because accepting would mean surrendering something essential about what we've built, even if I can't precisely define what that something. Autonomy, she suggested. Creative control? The particular culture you've established? All of those, but also something more fundamental, I tried to articulate. It's about the integrity of the vision, the alignment between what we're building and why we're building it. Being absorbed into a larger entity, even with promises of independence, would inevitably shift that alignment. Sophia was quiet for a moment, considering my explanation. You know, she finally said, I faced something similar when deciding between surgical specialties and family medicine. The surgical path offered greater prestige, higher compensation, more professional recognition, all the external markers of success. But it would have meant practicing medicine in a way that didn't align with my deepest values and purposes. How did you ultimately decide? I asked, genuinely curious about her process. I asked myself a simple question. If external validation and financial considerations were removed from the equation, which path would still feel meaningful and fulfilling? The answer was immediately clear. She paused briefly. Perhaps that's the question you should be asking about this acquisition offer. Her suggestion resonated deeply. If market validation and financial security were removed from consideration, would joining Athena still represent the best evolution of DataSense? Would it preserve or enhance what made our company meaningful beyond its market value? The answer emerged with surprising clarity once framed this way. While Athena's offer was generous and thoughtfully constructed, it fundamentally represented an exit rather than an evolution, the culmination of one journey rather than the continuation of our authentic path. The following morning, I drafted my response to Martin Reynolds, declining Athena's acquisition offer while expressing genuine appreciation for their interest and the thoughtful structure of their proposal. The letter acknowledged the potential synergies between our companies but reaffirmed DataSense's commitment to independent growth and development. While we're honored by Athena's recognition of what we've built, I concluded, we believe DataSense's greatest potential will be realized through continued independent evolution according to our founding vision and values. We remain open to exploring partnership opportunities that preserve this independence while creating mutual benefit. After sending the response, I convened our leadership team to share my decision and outline our continued growth strategy as an independent company. The announcement was met with palpable relief from most team members, particularly those who had been with DataSense from its earliest stages. I was afraid to hope you'd decline, Maya admitted after the meeting. Most founders would have accepted such a generous offer without hesitation. 5 years ago, I probably would have, I acknowledged. But this journey has fundamentally changed how I define success and value. What we're building here matters precisely because it reflects our vision rather than someone else's, because it solves problems in ways that align with our values rather than external expectations. The decision to remain independent rather than accepting acquisition represented more than a business strategy. It was the culmination of a personal evolution that had begun the moment my original path was blocked by my parents' decision to reallocate my college fund. That apparent setback had forced me to define success on my own terms, rather than accepting conventional definitions or external validation. In declining both my parents' investment offer and Athena's acquisition proposal, I had affirmed that DataSense's value transcended financial metrics or market validation. What we were building mattered not just for its economic worth, but for its integrity to our founding vision and values, a perspective I might never have developed had my original path remained unobstructed. The obstacle that had initially seemed like rejection had ultimately become the foundation for something far more valuable than what it had replaced. Not just a successful company, but the unshakable confidence that comes from creating meaningful value on your own terms. The decision to decline Athena's acquisition offer marked a pivotal moment for DataSense. By choosing independence over immediate financial reward, I had made a definitive statement about our company's future direction and values. Now came the more challenging part, transforming that philosophical stance into concrete action and sustainable growth. The morning after sending my response to Athena, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. The quiet before my team arrived provided valuable space for reflection and planning. Our choice to remain independent carried significant implications for our strategy, operations, and cultural development. Independence wasn't merely the absence of acquisition, but an affirmative path requiring deliberate navigation. I began by documenting the core principles that would guide our independent journey. This wasn't a formal mission statement for external consumption, but a clear articulation of the values and approaches that made DataSense distinctive. The document addressed our development philosophy, client relationships, team culture, and growth objectives, all elements that might have been compromised under acquisition. When Maya arrived around 7:30, she found me surrounded by notes and diagrams mapping our strategic direction. "I thought I was the early bird today," she remarked, setting down her laptop bag. "But you look like you've been here for hours." "Since 5, I confirmed. Independence requires more than just saying no to acquisition offers. We need to define what we're saying yes to." She examined the whiteboard where I had outlined our 3-year growth trajectory. "Ambitious," she observed, "but achievable with the right focus and execution." Exactly. Without Athena's resources, we need to be more strategic about where we invest our time and capital. I handed her the document I had been drafting. "These are the core principles I believe should guide our independent development. I'd appreciate your perspective before I share them with the larger team." Maya reviewed the document carefully, occasionally nodding or making thoughtful notations in the margin. When she finished, she looked up with an expression of quiet approval. "This captures why most of us are here instead of at larger tech companies," she said. "Particularly the emphasis on solving real business problems rather than chasing technological complexity for its own sake. That pragmatic focus is what makes DataSense valuable to our clients." "And sustainable as an independent company," I added. "We can't compete with enterprise platforms on feature breadth or technical sophistication, but we can deliver more immediate value through simplicity and focus on actual business outcomes." Over the next 2 hours, we refined the document together, clarifying language and strengthening key points. By the time the rest of the team began arriving, we had developed a cogent vision for DataSense's independent future, one that acknowledged our limitations while emphasizing our distinctive strengths and values. At our weekly all-hands meeting that afternoon, I shared both my decision to decline Athena's offer and the strategic direction that would guide our continued independence. The announcement generated visible enthusiasm among our team members, many of whom had joined DataSense specifically because of our distinctive approach and culture. "This decision means we're charting our own course rather than following someone else's map," I explained. "That brings both tremendous freedom and significant responsibility. We won't have Athena's resources or market position, but we also won't be constrained by their established systems or priorities." The team's questions revealed both excitement about maintaining our independence and practical concerns about competitive pressures and growth challenges. I addressed each query with transparent honesty, acknowledging the legitimate difficulties we would face while expressing confidence in our collective ability to navigate them successfully. Independence means accepting certain constraints and challenges, I concluded. But it also means preserving what makes DataSense uniquely valuable to our clients and fulfilling for us as professionals. That's worth the additional effort and strategic discipline required. Following the meeting, I met individually with each department head to discuss how our commitment to independence would affect their specific areas of responsibility. These conversations transformed abstract principles into concrete operational plans, ensuring our philosophical stance was supported by practical implementation strategies. With our operations director, we developed a revised growth model that emphasized efficient resource allocation and strategic client acquisition, rather than rapid expansion. This approach acknowledged our capital constraints while focusing on sustainable development that preserved our quality standards and client experience. We need to be more selective about which market segments we target, I emphasized. Without Athena's resources, we can't effectively serve every potential client category. Let's identify where our approach creates the most distinctive value and focus our efforts there. This conversation led to a systematic evaluation of our client base, identifying patterns in where DataSense created the most significant impact and client satisfaction. The analysis revealed that service-based businesses with high transaction volumes but limited IT resources consistently reported the greatest value from our platform. Companies like independent medical practices, specialized retail operations, and professional service firms. These businesses typically fall between enterprise solutions that are too complex and expensive for their needs, and basic small business software that lacks the analytical depth they require. Our operations director observed. That's exactly the gap DataSense was designed to fill. With this insight, we refined our market focus and messaging to target these specific business categories more effectively. Rather than pursuing broader market penetration across all small and medium businesses, we developed specialized knowledge and capabilities for these particular segments where our approach created distinctive advantages. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.